Hey there, fellow music fans.
Hmm.
Have you ever, gotten lost in a playlist and wondered
Mhm.
if there's an end to new music?
Oh, yeah.
Could we ever hit a point where every possible song is already out there?
Yeah,
That's what we're diving deep into today.
yeah, it's a question that has actually sparked some fascinating calculations.
I bet, I bet. And just to kick things off, let's talk numbers.
Okay.
Just think, iTunes alone has something like 28 million songs.
Wow.
Then you've got Last FM with 45 million.
Yeah.
And Grace Note, which tracks music data, clocks in at a whopping 130 million.
It's wild.
To put that in perspective, listening to all those Grace Note tracks would take over 1,200 years.
That's a serious commitment to music.
Yeah.
But it does make you wonder, even with all that music already out there,
Right.
could we ever reach a point where all the possible combinations of notes are used up?
It sounds wild, I know. But the idea is that our ears can only hear a certain range of tones.
Yeah.
And often what makes songs sound similar boils down to just a few notes.
Hmm.
So maybe, just maybe, there's a limit to how many truly different melodies we can create.
Yeah. It's a bit like having a giant Lego set,
Okay.
but with a limited number of brick types.
I see where you're going with this.
At some point, even with all those bricks,
Yeah.
you might have built every possible combination.
Okay, I like this. I like this. So swap those Legos for digital music,
Okay.
which is built with bits, those zeros and ones.
Right.
Where do we go from there?
Well, so your average 5-minute song on a CD needs about 211 million bits
Wow.
to store all that audio information.
211 million bits for one song. That's already a lot to wrap my head around.
It is. And here's where it gets even wilder.
Okay.
The number of potential combinations you could make with those bits is 2 to the power of 211 million.
Okay.
It's a number so massive most calculators can't even handle it.
All right. I am officially lost in space with this number.
Yeah.
Is there any way to even grasp how huge it is?
Let's try this. Think about a single drop of water.
Okay.
It contains roughly 6 sextillion atoms, a number with 22 digits.
Wow. Okay.
That's a lot of atoms in one tiny drop.
Definitely a lot more atoms than drops of water I've ever seen.
Now imagine all the atoms in the entire Earth.
Oh, wow.
That's a number with 50 digits.
Okay.
And if we go even bigger, to all the estimated hydrogen atoms
Yeah.
in the entire observable universe,
Okay.
we get a number with 80 digits.
Okay. My head's spinning. So
Oh.
where does this music number fit in?
Well, that number we calculated for possible 5-minute audio files,
Yeah.
it has 63 million digits.
Whoa. Okay. That puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
So what does this astronomical number actually mean for music?
It means that somewhere within those potential 5-minute audio files, you've got everything.
Everything.
From Beethoven's symphonies to the latest pop hits to that embarrassing recording of me trying karaoke last year.
Uh-oh. Maybe let's not dig that one up.
It's all in there.
Wow.
Every sound imaginable, even the awkward silences, random noises, and
Wow.
every bark my dog's ever made.
Oh.
All encoded in those bit combinations.
So somewhere out there in that digital universe is the perfect song I haven't heard yet.
It is.
That's kind of a mind-blowing thought.
Though finding it might take a while.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, so we've established there's a crazy amount of potential audio out
Yeah.
there,
Right.
but that includes every sound imaginable, right?
Yeah.
Not just music.
You're exactly right. To
Okay.
get closer to answering our question about running out of new music,
Yeah.
we need to narrow things down.
Okay.
Let's focus on melodies specifically.
Okay, less random sounds, more of the stuff that gets stuck in our heads.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Okay.
But even if we focus on melodies, aren't the calculations still pretty intense?
They are.
Yeah.
One user, Ferris Lepidoptera, calculated all the possible melodies within one octave
Okay.
using different note lengths.
Okay.
The result, a number larger than the age of the universe in seconds.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, that's wild.
Yeah.
But that's still a whole octave. What if we make it even simpler?
Another user, Eurocide, did just that.
Yeah.
They figured out the number of unique 8-note melodies within an octave
Okay.
using common note lengths.
Okay.
Their result, roughly 79 billion possibilities.
79 billion, that's still a lot of potential earworms. I'm trying to put that into perspective. Like
Yeah.
if you had 100 songwriters,
Yeah.
each writing a new 8-note melody.
Yeah.
Every single second.
Every single second,
Yeah.
it would still take them 248 years
Wow.
to create all the possible combinations.
So based purely on the math, we're probably not running out of new melodies anytime soon.
Right.
But here's where it gets a little strange.
Okay.
If there are so many possibilities, why do so many songs sound familiar?
Right.
Like, why do we keep hearing the same patterns over and over again?
That's the interesting paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
It seems like with all this potential for unique melodies,
Yeah.
we should be drowning in completely original sounds.
Yeah, it really is a head scratcher. If there are billions upon billions of potential melodies,
Yeah.
why do we keep hearing the same handful, like, recycled?
Well, it might have something to do with our brain's natural inclination toward patterns.
Okay.
We're wired to recognize and seek them out.
Yeah.
And that applies to music, too.
So it's not that songwriters are intentionally copying each other.
Right.
It's more like our brains gravitate towards certain sounds and structures.
Exactly. And think about it. Throughout history, musicians have borrowed and adapted musical ideas from those who came before them. It's like we're building on a shared musical foundation,
I like that.
adding our own twists and turns along the way.
It's like that saying, everything is a remix.
Right.
But instead of DJs, it's songwriters throughout history.
Yeah.
And honestly, that makes those aha moments when you recognize a sample in a new song
Oh, yeah.
even cooler.
Absolutely. Those
Yeah.
moments of recognition tap into something familiar and comforting, which can enhance our enjoyment of the music.
Yeah.
And speaking of familiarity, let's talk about those recurring patterns we hear everywhere.
Oh, you mean like how Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is basically musical siblings with the alphabet song
Yes,
and Ba Ba Black Sheep?
precisely. And the similarities don't stop there.
Really?
Parts of My Country, 'Tis of Thee, and God Save the Queen also share that same melodic DNA.
Wow.
And don't forget Love Me Tender,
Okay.
which takes its melody from the Civil War era tune Lee.
Wow. It's like a whole family tree of melodies out there.
It is.
And there's that website, soundsjustlike.com, which is dedicated to finding musical twins.
Right?
You could spend hours getting lost down that rabbit hole.
It's a great resource if you want to explore just how many songs share similar melodies.
Yeah.
And speaking of shared patterns, remember that hilarious Four Chords video by The Axis of Awesome?
Oh, yeah, the one that shows how countless pop songs use the same 4 chords. I still can't believe how many songs fit into that formula.
It's a perfect example of how certain musical patterns,
Yeah.
even simple ones, can be incredibly adaptable and appealing.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond pop music, too.
Really?
Even in poetry and songwriting, we see specific patterns recurring over and over again.
Wait, really? I never thought about poetry having musical patterns.
There's one called common meter that's so prevalent in poetry and music.
Okay.
It's earned the name common.
Oh, wow.
It's a specific pattern of syllables and stresses,
Okay.
and it pops up everywhere.
Like where? Give me some examples.
Think about the Pokemon theme song, Gilligan's Island, House of the Rising Sun,
Okay.
Amazing Grace, even Emily Dickinson's poetry.
Wow.
They all use common meter.
It's like common meter is the musical equivalent of a comfortable pit of jeans.
Yes.
Versatile, familiar, and always fits just right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's this incredible mashup called Stairway to Gilligan's Island
Okay.
that blends those two songs together seamlessly.
Wow.
It proves just how flexible these patterns can be.
Okay, I'm putting that one on my list to check out.
Please do!
It's fascinating how our brains seem to crave these familiar sounds and structures.
Yeah.
But why is that? What's the advantage of gravitating toward the familiar?
While some researchers believe it might be tied to our brain's preference for predictability
Okay.
in a world that's often chaotic and unpredictable.
Yeah.
Familiar patterns offer a sense of order and comfort. It's
Right.
like our brains are saying, hey, I recognize this. I know how this goes.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like how we enjoy rewatching our favorite movies or TV shows.
Exactly.
It's comforting to know what's going to happen,
Right.
to experience those familiar emotions again.
It's like returning to a safe and familiar space.
Yeah.
And this preference for predictability might extend beyond just music and entertainment.
Wait, are you saying our love for patterns might influence other areas of our lives too?
It's a compelling possibility.
Yeah.
Think about how we form relationships.
Okay.
Often we're drawn to people who share our values, our sense of humor, our way of seeing the world.
So instead of looking for someone who completes us,
Right.
we're actually looking for someone who complements our existing patterns.
Yes.
Someone who fits into our personal puzzle, so to speak.
Exactly. And those shared patterns can create a strong foundation for connection and understanding.
But doesn't that run the risk of getting boring?
That's true.
If we're always surrounded by the familiar,
Yeah.
wouldn't we miss out on new experiences and perspectives?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Finding the balance
Yeah.
between the comfort of the familiar and the excitement of the unknown.
Right.
It's like walking a tightrope
Okay.
between predictability and surprise.
So it's not about rejecting patterns altogether,
Right.
but about recognizing their role in our lives and using them as a springboard for growth and exploration.
Absolutely. Think of it like this patterns provide the basic framework,
Okay.
the foundation,
Yeah.
but it's up to us to fill in the details,
Okay.
to add our own personal flair, to create something that's both familiar and new.
Okay. Comforting and surprising.
So it's not just about the raw ingredients,
Yeah.
but how we combine them, how we spice things up.
Exactly. It's like taking those 4 chords from the Axis of Awesome video
Yeah,
and crafting a completely unique song.
right.
Something that honors the familiar structure while pushing creative boundaries.
I'm starting to see how this idea applies to more than just music.
Oh, yeah.
It's about understanding how patterns shape our perceptions and choices in all areas of life.
It really is.
It's funny, we've talked about all these external factors that shape music,
Yes.
like math and patterns.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the role our own brains play?
Right.
Do our brains have like a secret agenda when it comes to the music we enjoy?
It's not so much a secret agenda as it is a set of preferences,
Okay,
shaped by how our brains process information.
I see.
And some really interesting research has explored this connection between brain activity and musical enjoyment.
Oh, wow. So you're telling me there's a scientific reason why some songs get stuck in our heads for days? Yeah.
While others just fade into the background.
There might be.
Oh, wow.
Researchers have been looking into something called compressibility
Okay.
and how it relates to our enjoyment of music.
Okay, hold on. Compressibility.
Yeah,
Like zipping up a file on my computer.
it's a similar concept.
Okay.
Think of it like this.
Okay.
A simple melody, like a nursery rhyme,
Yeah.
is like a short, straightforward sentence,
Okay.
easy to remember and repeat.
Makes sense.
A complex symphony, on the other hand,
Yeah.
is like a dense novel with multiple plot lines and characters.
Okay.
It takes more effort to process.
I'm starting to see the connection.
Yeah,
So simpler music is easier to compress in our brains.
exactly. And studies suggest that while we might enjoy a catchy, simple tune for a bit,
Yeah.
it might not hold our attention for very long.
Okay.
Our brains crave a certain level of complexity to stay engaged.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love a good pop song, but if I listen to the same one on repeat for too long,
Yeah.
it starts to feel a bit bland.
Right, like eating plain pasta every day.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum,
Okay.
imagine listening to something extremely complex and unpredictable,
Okay.
like free jazz or experimental electronic music.
Yeah.
It can feel overwhelming,
Yeah.
like trying to understand a conversation in a language you don't speak,
Okay. Yeah, too much information to overload for my brain to handle.
right?
So are you saying there's a sweet spot when it comes to musical complexity?
It seems like there is.
Okay.
It's that Goldilocks zone
Yeah.
where the music is compressible enough to be catchy,
Okay.
but also complex enough to keep our brains interested and stimulated.
So our brains want a melody they can grasp, but with enough twists and turns to keep things interesting.
Exactly.
That's pretty fascinating.
And what's even more intriguing is that this sweet spot probably varies from person to person
Oh.
based on their personal preferences and musical experiences.
Of course.
But the key takeaway here is that our brains are actively involved
Yeah.
in deciding what we find musically enjoyable. So it's not just about the notes themselves,
Right.
but about how our brains interpret those notes.
Exactly.
The patterns we recognize, the emotions those patterns trigger.
Yeah.
It's a whole brain dance happening while we listen.
Exactly. Music is a powerful form of communication,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a two-way street.
I like that.
The composer creates the music,
Right.
but it's the listener's brain that ultimately decides how that music is received and experienced.
Wow.
That's why what might sound amazing to one person could be totally boring to someone else.
It's like music is a language, but everyone has their own unique dialect.
Exactly.
It makes you think differently about that question we started with.
Right.
Will we ever run out of new music?
Right. The answer is far more nuanced than a simple yes or no.
Yeah.
We've explored the incredible number of potential melodies,
Right.
the comforting familiarity of patterns,
Yeah.
and now the role our brains play in all of this.
It seems like music is this constantly evolving conversation between creators and listeners.
Yep.
It's not just about hitting a finite number of combinations.
Right.
It's about the ongoing exchange of ideas and emotions through sound.
And that conversation is shaped by so many factors.
Oh, yeah.
Our shared history, cultural influences, personal
You know
experiences,
what?
and even the intricate workings of our brains.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful, complex interplay.
So even if we somehow manage to create every single mathematically possible melody,
Yeah,
it feels like there will always be new ways to express ourselves musically.
absolutely. We might invent new instruments,
Totally.
discover new technologies, find entirely new ways of experiencing sound.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless.
Or maybe we'll find new ways to appreciate the music that already exists,
Yeah.
rediscovering those familiar patterns and finding new depths of meaning in them.
It's a reminder that the journey of musical discovery is just as important as the destination.
That's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
So to all our listeners out there, next time you hear a song that moves you,
Ah.
take a moment to appreciate all the elements that came together to
Oh,
create that experience.
absolutely.
The composer, the performer, the physics of sound,
Yeah.
and the incredible power of your own brain.
Keep listening, keep exploring, and let the music guide you.
And that wraps up our deep dive for today. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration of music,
Yes.
math, and the mysteries of the human mind.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep those ears open and those minds curious.